Unraveling misinformation. In this segment, we'll discuss the impact of misinformation on society. At first glance, this may just be an article geared towards psychology or the politics of information. But taking a closer look, could there be a greater message? Jason Friedman is here to break it down. Jason?
So, in a recent study, economist John List, along with his colleagues, they conducted a real-world experiment to see whether simple, low-cost nudges can be effective in helping consumers to reject misinformation. The economists conducted their field experiment in the run-up to the 2022 presidential campaign or presidential election in Colombia. Like the U.S., they're extremely polarized. To figure out effective ways to lower the demand for misinformation, the economists recruited over 2,000 Colombians. To gauge whether these nudges get participants to be more critical of misinformation, each group was shown a series of headlines, some fake, some real. Those who saw videos of opposing sides getting along were 30% less likely to believe misinformation. The researchers also found that the personality test had little or no effect on their propensity to believe or reject fake news. The economists also found that participants who both took the test and watched the video became so skeptical that they were about 30% less likely to view true headlines as reliable. So, in a world of AI and deep fakes, one can't be too skeptical, can they?
Well, I think they can be. They should be, right?
Yeah.
Because the misinformation, the control of information is an age-old center of gravity. It pulls it. It has so much of an impact on the things around it. Everything is pulled towards information because it is the precursor to so many things that happen. So, Jason, reading this article, what was the most striking? You laid out quite a few statistics there, but what was the most striking piece of information you walked away with?
Well, I really like the last point that was brought up about how when they were given a chance to kind of look at themselves and see how they process information on top of the videos they were shown, they realized that, holy shit, there is so much misinformation being put out. And I mean, so much in comparison to truth, right? Verifiable truth, that they're like, even if this is true, I don't fucking believe it. And the idea of being too skeptical to me is interesting because I'm more than happy to reject or to not reject the null hypothesis, right? I'm happy to accept it, right? I'm happy to be like, okay, this isn't the case. I would much rather come from that angle as opposed to automatically accepting something than having to prove myself wrong. It seems so ass backwards, but we're conditioned, especially in a society. I mean, shit, growing up here in the South, here in Texas, down the street from Lakewood Church, you're conditioned to accept first and to accept authority and to accept first, and then you have to get whittled down. You know, critical thinking isn't really valued in these communities, and we can see time and time again, in study after study after study, that those people who have a propensity to believe fake news tend to also be more fundamentalist, tend to have a propensity to reject science, to reject observable facts of the universe in exchange for theology.
I think that statistic, that last statistic, 30% less likely to believe misinformation, is pretty striking. And Kelley, I wanted to ask you, what does it say that so many people realized that they couldn't trust the things that they were being told after this study?
I think what it says is a lot of people haven't been thinking for themselves before that they actually realized how to do that. And I think that's what was the most important part of the study myself. Not to disagree with you again, Jason, was not the amount of people that got to that point, but how did they get to that point? And it seems like being exposed to good, rational, non-aggressive, non-confrontational discussion with somebody representing both sides got more people there than any other process. And I think that was really, really important. And it's something that I've been trying to stress a lot. You know, this is the way we need to deal with theists more, I think. We want to be non-confrontational. We want to show them that we can be people too, we can even be the better person. And that's really, really important, I think, to come across. And it's not just with the person that you're dealing with, but it's very important to the people who are watching that. That's who this study was done with, was people who were watching that conversation. So, yeah, I think that that's really important. I thought that was really interesting and the most important part of it.
You know, that study is geared toward people that were not even involved, because now the second and third order effects of that is that we're all sitting here talking about it, and other people are going to come into knowing about this article, knowing about this study that took place, and understand, even if they're watching us with some criticism in mind, understand that there are people out there that are having some conversations that are being challenged, even if they think just like they do. So I think that was striking to me. And, you know, I also want to say that information control, I said this earlier, dates back to nearly all cultures in achieving victory, right? Sun Tzu said, impact your enemy's control of information and don't allow your enemy to control your information. We still abide by those principles in combat and preparing for conflict today. But I think that in the media and in the political arena, especially, it's almost like a battleground, because the control of information and the influence of information is so disingenuous, but it's meant to knock the other person out of the competition. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that after your analysis, Jason. Does that compute with you?
No, it does compute with me. And I think what Kelley, what you're talking about, and what Kelley was saying about people being able to have amicable discussions being really important. You know, we were talking before we filmed, and I'd mentioned to y'all about having a lot of my close friends are religious.
Yeah.
You know, and and then also all of us discussing how much we like to argue with each other, my friends, and then all all three of us, and then, you know, the producers and everybody.
Kelley especially.
Yeah, Kelley loves to argue with me. Kelley and I argue a lot, actually, and it's like a lot actually on ACD and talking just in between each other.
Dick, Jason.
I know I am a fucking dick, and I'm proud of it. That's cool, man. You know, I can live with that. But at the same time, if I'm wrong, I'm like, yeah, I was wrong about that.
I love Jason to death.
What I like about, especially like the buddies I train with, you know, I mentioned them a lot. They're all different religions and like a good mix actually, and different cultures from different places in the world, and we're all close friends and beat the shit out of each other. But like, we argue about pretty important shit. We talk about social justice. We talk about religion, talk about Christian nationalism, talk about atheism, talk about all that stuff openly.
That's all those things they tell you not to talk about.
Exactly. You know, and I think I might have a kink for like having religious friends. I don't know. I love it because I like being my open self about everything I'm into and what I'm not into and blah, blah, blah. But also being like, hey, bro, you don't judge me. I don't judge you. If you're cool with me and I can trust you around my kid, you're not going to like harm my kid or steal my shit. We're probably in a good place right now. Right. Are you a good sparring partner? Can I trust you there? Cool. Now I respect you more than almost anybody. Let's just work from there and see what happens. And I think there's where you see more commonalities and allies. And maybe by people observing that, sorry, it's a roundabout way of getting to this. People observing that can see, hey, that fucking weird tattooed guy with the shirt with pentagrams and my Muslim coach are really close friends. Like, oh, maybe like I can be cool with people that are different than me. I don't know, you know what I mean? And I think it's a really cool thing. I didn't even really think about it that way. So yeah, Kelley, you made a good point, man.
Yeah, and Kelley, do you think that after realizing that they can't trust what they're being told, that some of these people might actually also realize, holy shit, I'm a victim of my own tribe?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. No. Totally. That's what I went through. I think a lot of people who become atheists that convert to atheism go through that process. Like, holy crap, man, these people have just been deluding me my whole life. And yeah, I was victimized. And that's the birth of the angry atheist, right?
That's right. That is right. Yep. And that is what, I mean, made me the angry atheist, the realizations that I had about the information I was receiving. Jason, I want to harken back to something that you said, because I think this is important. So I've done jiu-jitsu and combat sports as well. And the lack of information in those scenarios is also quite special, because just hear me out on this. I might not know anything about anyone that I train with, but I still know them. I know them in a way that I don't know anybody else. I don't know my own mother. I don't know my wife, my best friend, in the same way that I do when I'm fighting somebody. You know what I mean? And it's such a special relationship. And to have that without the outside noise is something that's unique to those situations. I just wanted to see if you could expand on that.
Oh, dude, man, I look so okay. Anybody who does combative sports knows that you're only not hurting whenever you're fighting, right? You know, so everybody knows that. So I look forward to sparring. We have sparring Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where we're doing cage drills and small gloves and, you know, really just laying into each other. Man, I look so forward to that. You know, got my buddy who's an Orthodox Jew, got my other buddy who's a Christian, my other buddy who is Islamic, my other buddy who's into this, you know, one of my buddy, you know, we got a black dude, we got a Russian dude, we got a Hispanic dude, we got me, some, you know, tattooed up Jewish guy, right? I mean, it's a cool mix of people, and I fucking look so forward to that, and I cherish those times, you know. And then we sit there and we beat the shit out of each other, and that's kind of like the foreplay to like, hey, let's have a cool conversation afterwards. Right. And then you like, and like you said, that connection that you have with these dudes, like it's intimate, you know, and because you're sitting there, you're working on something that's so important to you. That's like the thing that like anybody who fights in this kind of, especially jujitsu, and you obsess over it all day long, all day.
I think you make a good point about that being the foreplay, because you really, when you eliminate the static, you eliminate that information, right? You're actually building credibility, right? When you get along, and it doesn't have to be combat sports, right? It could be pretty much anything. Kelley, you're a geologist, right? And you're smart in the ways of science. You've got to come across some people that you're only talking science, right? You're only talking. You're only talking the things that matter in that moment, and then you probably find that once you've established a human connection, you know, you can open it up to other things and find, you know what, this person's not so bad. I don't know. What's your experience been like in that arena?
Yeah, my best friend up here in Michigan, that's how we met each other, was talking rocks. And then, I mean, unfortunately he's gone now, but that's how I met him, and talking one thing. We're both geologists. And then the next thing I know, you know, we knew each other for 10 years and became brothers. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to the martial arts thing, I did a little bit myself, and it was in our school on Saturdays. It wasn't required, but it was kind of traditional that when we were done for the day, we'd all go out to dinner together. You know, we'd beat each other up for an hour and a half and then go share a meal. So,
oh yeah, of course.
Absolutely. So Kelley, I want to ask you though, we've done several segments tonight, and in a couple of them you referenced history. And, you know, we've talked about the roots of Christianity and things like that. How does information now, the way it's used, differ, in your opinion, from the way it used to be used? Because in my opinion, I think a lack of information in the Middle Ages and in the early church years was the way that people were controlled. But now there's so much information that people are almost manipulating it because they can't control its absence. So what are your thoughts there?
Almost, they are manipulating it. All right. That's the thing. And I'm not sure when that change happened. I'm pretty sure it happened within my lifetime, though. I just didn't notice it happen because it wasn't like a switch that turned on. It was just a slow thing where information started to be taken over by large corporations for the most part. So we were only getting filtered things, the things that they wanted us to know. Now, the rest of it was out there. That was one of the great things about the internet, is that information that was being suppressed was out there. Unfortunately, there was a bunch of other information that, they don't want you to know this, so you think it's something that's suppressed, but it's all bullshit too. A bunch of pseudoscience, a bunch of pseudo history, pseudo archaeology, and that became a problem. And you know, on the very first time I was ever on an ACA show, I said, the internet needs to be peer reviewed, and I stand by that today. So,
yeah, well, we are the peer review, aren't we? Right now, we are reviewing the accuracy of some of that stuff, and so were the people in this study. And I really want to hearken or I use that word already, but stay focused on this idea of victimization, because there are people that look to information and look to the internet for reassurance of their beliefs. But what they get is such a hyper version of that. For example, nowadays in the political climate, you might see a presidential candidate riding on a shark with a very Schwarzenegger-like body, holding a machine gun and an American flag. You know what I mean? And people are like, people are like, man, this is what I stand for, right? But it's like, no, you don't. Go look at the other picture of your so or quote unquote candidate, right? Who is very solemn praying. The guy's got 6 fingers. I mean, you need to know. You need to know when you're being fed bullshit, right? And I think having these conversations does that. So yeah, Jason, just want to kind of go back to you. Same question for you. Do you see a difference in how information's used now versus the way we understood it, maybe in earlier years?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you look at any established empire with people who have some form of access to information, I mean, there's the dissemination of information is highly monitored and controlled. See this whenever Christian controlled countries and shit like that. So we don't need to go into a history lesson. I think right now it's still a lack of information. I think we're in an information desert, not because the information isn't there, but you've just got such an influx of so much fucking trash.
Yeah, that's true.
And just so much other quote information, because I think when we're saying information, we're talking about things that support like good shit, right? I mean, that's probably how we could define it. When we're talking about information right now, we're like cool shit that's factual and real and beneficial and interesting and verifiable, like, some good shit. But there's a lot of info. There's a lot of just fucking just noise, just smashing into your fucking eye holes and ear holes and sense holes all day. So I think what happens is you still have an information deficit because you can only really take in so much until you're just like, oh, my brain's tired. But then you put on noise and chatter that repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. Think about the songs that are popular. They just repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, repeat. So that's what we're stuck in. So I think it is a lack of information, just in a different way.
Kelley? And one of the problems when you get all that information and you're filtering out just some of it because that's all you can absorb.
Yes.
You're absorbing the stuff that you want to hear. And that's a big problem too. So you're not doing any critical thinking. You're just like, oh, this says something that's right along with what I believe. So that must be true.
Well, yeah, then you're training your like kind of default mode network to constantly like settle into that cycle and settle into it. And if you're not challenging it, shit doesn't fucking start firing, try to grab new shit. So that's a big problem. And I agree with you.
I think that's what was interesting about this study is that the people that realized that they probably don't trust what they're being told, it only came after they were forced to face that, right? Yeah. So I think that was pretty significant. What over the years we've heard this thing about the human attention span shortening. How do you guys think that factors into our ability to absorb information, good or bad, or whatever the case may be?
I don't know if the human attention span is shortening. I think I don't know of any studies. Jason, I know you're the mind guy. Do you know of any that have done in that area? No. But I think it's a perception. Like people had less to do 100 years ago. They didn't have a phone in their hand. They didn't have computers. They didn't have the ability to go to the theater. They didn't have the ability to hop in their car and go visit somebody. So they would sit. Right. I mean, that's what
stay focused longer.
Yeah. Right. So it's not that the attention span has gotten shorter. It's just that we have more things to give our attention to. Right.
So when I was going through like group psychology and adult psychology, we taught one of my favorite things to talk about is critical thinking and reasoning and concrete operations, like black and white thinking. And one of the biggest criticisms of, I guess, just the Western American structure of education and thinking and social expectations and information is that we are not required to think critically. We don't have to. So what they're seeing is a very
cool.
And it's more than that. It's not it's not culturally expected. So what they're seeing, bear with me, is that critical thinking and reasoning and the ability to do that, and I guess like the post-formal, where you dialectics and pragmatism and gray areas and reasoning and understanding how to work with the world and not just black, white, good, bad, stinky, not stinky, you know, I mean, well, not even stinky, smell, you know, it has to be expected by your social circle, by your social environment, by your, there needs to be a pressure that causes you to do it. So critical thinking is a thing that you have to do in order to do it. You have to train it. And if it's not expected by your society, which is, again, you asked, is there anything behind this? If it's not expected by your society, then that pressure isn't going to be there. And if you're in places and situations to where you don't have to search out resources and access to information, and you don't have to like rely on cunning, you can just boop, boop, boop. It only makes sense that would correlate with what they're talking about. So that's where my mind goes when I think about that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Kelley, you have anything to add on to that?
Probably the best thing that I could say right now is to remember that the best way to convince somebody is to have a non-confrontational conversation.
I might disagree.
Well, that's what that study just showed, though.
No, I'm just
fuck you, Jason.
Well, no.
I only said that because you got me.
Well, I think confrontational is healthy, but it's confrontational with not
aggressive. How about that?
With the intention for resolution. Even a little aggression is okay.
Intent matters. Intent matters in these conversations.
Intention. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think you guys later. I just want to. I want to add an experience that I had. I met with an old college professor a few years ago.
Okay.
And we talked about how the course of teaching is changing, and he said, and I got my degree in history, and he goes, I don't really expect people to remember dates or names anymore because they have it in their phone. Now I'm teaching them more of how to find it and how to think critically about it. And I think that is a huge transition.
Yeah.
And so, for this segment, I want our viewers to take away the fact that we talked about the way that information can be used, the way it can be weaponized, the way that we rely on it, and the importance of breaking it down, because this study of this article shows that even in your most preconceived notions, your strongest convictions, there's still room to challenge those things. And so I would encourage all of our viewers to click on our link below and find more nonprofits and maybe challenge some of your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in.